So.
And are the soccer fields open for competition?
Yeah, so we've been doing soccer. Some baseball teams have been practicing. Lacrosse has been out there, just following some COVID guidelines. And then there's a cap per site per person. So.
Yeah, there's all kinds of activities going on down in Arizona here. So.
Yeah. I know
tennis and
baseball,
pickleball and stuff like that.
Yeah, pickleball's still been going hard here. A lot. Our outdoor courts, Raleigh Park, we still see a lot of use there, and
good.
Cedar Hills Park. I know baseball registration just opened, and their numbers are looking pretty good from what I'm hearing. So the kids will be getting out and playing some baseball, soccer this spring.
Sounds good. Thank you.
John, you mentioned about the swimming for 2 households. Is that you have to book for that ahead of time, or?
Yeah, everything is pre-booked. If you're looking at it, try to get on there. It opens at 8 a.m. for the week ahead. So tomorrow we'll open up the following Friday, and those reservations we're seeing kind of fill up in the first 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
And so we're trying to find ways to find more space to accommodate people.
Okay. Well,
yeah, actually, John, I was going to ask about that because I've been waiting to hear when Family Swim would open. So when I got the email, I was so excited, and I logged on as soon as I had a chance, and every single one was booked. So I actually asked on the Facebook, and somebody got back to me and let me know exactly what you just said, that it's a week in advance. But what about, how do phone reservations work with that? Because part of me is wondering, I mean, are people calling up and then they're taking the slots that, I mean.
No, they're filling up online. The
they're
phones,
all filling up online?
Yeah, it's really hard to sign up on the phone because we're so limited by how many people we can take by phone calls right now.
Right.
If you want to get in, and you're having trouble with the registration.
Well, so I work full time, and a lot of times, like, I'm just not available to have the mouse ready to go at 8 a.m., but I need to just set an alarm and make sure that I make the time because I really want to go. And that's what I did for preschool, because my son is registered for bilingual preschool at Conestoga, which we're so excited about in September. But yeah, that's what I know. I just need to do that, set aside the time.
Call the admin office. So a little cheat. Call the admin office. There's more receptionists at that site.
Okay. I will call at 8 a.m. if I can't get an online slot.
No, thank you, John.
Awesome.
Debbie, you've got your hand raised. Okay. And Scott Reed has still got a hand raised. Is there anything that Scott Reed wanted? Okay. Right. Any more questions for John? Thank you very much, John, for the update. And it's good to hear that life is returning slowly to normal. Hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit more soon. Okay, if there's no more questions, we'll move on to the next one. So this is a city update. Miles, is that from you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So I'm Miles Glowacki. I'm the neighborhood coordinator for the city of Beaverton. And I have a couple of updates. Let's see. Mayor Lacey Beatty shared her first State of the City, highlighting recent accomplishments and upcoming plans for this next year. It premiered Thursday, March 4th, and you can see it via the city's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter accounts. You can also see it on the city's webpage at beavertonoregon.gov, SOTC, State of the City. And there's also a transcript of recorded remarks, so you can just read it as well. Mayor Beatty shared city happenings in 2020, upcoming opportunities in 2021, and then there were unique perspectives shared from business leaders, community partners, and more. There is a special election in May to fill Mayor Beatty's former council seat. It will be held May 18th The position is elected at large and will fill the term that expires December 31st, 2022. The filing deadline is just passed. It was today at 5 p.m. You can see who's filed at beavertonoregon.gov/elections. And then the Public Safety Center new plaza. We're inviting the community to submit their naming suggestions. The deadline for submissions is Wednesday, March 31st. You can visit beavertonoregon.gov, Public Safety Center Plaza, PSC Plaza. Any suggestion is welcome and include a Beaverton resident, deceased or living, tribal name, or general suggestion. Please give a detailed explanation and context for why your suggestion should be considered. And there is a committee of volunteers that will review the public submissions and pass 3 to 5 names for City Council to consider in June. And City Council will make the final decision. And then in August, we're going to have an unveiling event. It'll either be virtual, in person, or a combination of both to celebrate the name selected and the recently completed installation of public art sculptures in the plaza. And then finally, we're in the midst of recruiting a city manager. We currently have an interim city manager, and we're recruiting for a full-time city manager to serve as the city's administrative head and report to City Council on the daily operation of city services and programs. Up-to-date information on the recruitment process is available at beavertonoregon.gov City Manager. There is a community survey that is out at that website. If you would like, we'd appreciate people to take it. Kind of ask like, what do you think are good qualities in a city manager that you'd like to see helping to run your city? And the appointment is expected to occur in summer, followed by a very early onboarding. And those are all the updates I have.
Okay, thank you very much, Miles. Has anyone got any questions for Miles?
Did you see Scott was having trouble with his audio and was wanting to type the questions?
Oh, I'm specifically here about the addition to the church, but this is all interesting as well. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions about the city?
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Miles. Thank you for being with us tonight and helping us. The next then is Gary for BCCI.
Short report tonight. The BCCI is working on the voters forum that's scheduled for April 29th. There are, I believe, school district. I know there are Parks and Rec district positions open, and I believe school district, and I don't know if either or both of those are going to be on the forum in addition to the city positions.
The Parks District people are.
Parks are?
Definitely, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Deb. The BCCI met with, well, they had a presentation on traffic calming from the city engineer at their last meeting. And I believe there's been attendance at a meeting that the Traffic Safety Commission hosted since then, but I don't know the results of it. And we won't hear for another week or so until the next meeting. But the bottom line is there's some interest in getting a bit more information on how the traffic calming process works. The Land Use Committee is working on a series of links from the Land Use Handbook at the on the NAC pages to the Land Use Handbooks in the general website. And I'm not quite sure. I know how these hot links will work. They're just a hyperlink you click on. The question is, what level of information do you want? So right now the concept is, okay, we're going to give you 3 levels of information about what this item is, be it a term or a process, whatever. Kind of cursory level. Okay, this is what a variance is. If you're a little more interested, here's variance level 2, and these are the these are all the conditions and terms that you would have to meet in order to submit and receive approval of a variance. And then level 3 would be, okay, and how long do you have to do this? What would be the application scenario, so on and so forth. So in a very rough concept, that's what's being pulled together. With that, there's been nothing published in terms of a submitted development application, although I think our next speaker has got that very thing in mind to talk about. Keep in mind, these development notices don't get published on the city site and emailed to folks until the application's been filed. So Deb, as you know, there's a pretty good lag between the time you talk to the neighborhood and the time the application gets filed. So having said that, any questions?
The only thing I'd add, Gary, is that there's no grants to be.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. That's my committee, if you will, as the alternate. But there's no grants to look at last month, and there's none on the agenda for this coming Monday either.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Frosty.
And in regards to the voters forum, looking for questions. So if you want to ask a question to any of the council position candidates or any of the Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec board member candidates, they can be submitted on the city website, I think, right, Miles? Is there a link? So yeah, and especially for Parks District people, they were really looking for questions for those candidates. So
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Any other questions for Frosty, Gary, or Debbie? Okay, thank you very much for your update. So we're now moving on to Dustin. We're a little bit early, but that's always good. That'll give you some more time. So Dustin, if you'd like to start.
He's muted.
Oh,
Sorry about that, guys. Am I able to share my screen?
Yes. Oh.
yeah.
Let's see. Okay, I'm not seeing that option.
Give me 1 second, Dustin. I'll get you set up here. As soon as I find your name. You should be able to now.
Share screen. There we go. All right. So are you all able to see that okay? Beginning here. Can you
Yes,
see
we
my
can.
screen?
Thank you.
Okay, great. So a lot of you were probably on this call approximately 6 to 7 months ago. We presented on this project. It's very much in the same form that it was before. We were not able to get our conditional use application submitted within that 6-month allotted time frame from when we had our last one. So we're having to do this again and just kind of refresh the project in everyone's memory, as far as neighbors and interested parties. So to recap, this is for the Southwest Hills Baptist Church at the corner of Southwest Brockman and Southwest 135th. We are proposing an approximately 17,000 square foot single story addition. It would house 10 new classrooms in a commons area, as well as some additional office space for staff. As part of the conditional use and the reason for the expansion, we are requesting an increase in a previously set threshold of 200 students at any given time on the property to 300 students. And that increase of 100 students would be specifically for the consolidation of Southwest Hills Baptist's Cordeo grade 7 through 12 offsite program to incorporate that on-site. This is the tax map, the location. I'm sure you all are familiar with the location. Over to the left here is Heighton Elementary School. And this is the proposed site plan with north at the top of screen. Excuse me. The existing church. Are you able to see my cursor as I move over the screen?
We can see
zoom
your
in?
cursor, but the picture is really tiny. So could you able to blow it up at all?
Yes, I can definitely zoom in. That
That's
better?
better. Thank you. Yes.
Sure. Okay. Existing parking lot down here. We're not proposing any changes to that parking lot. We are proposing to change, there's an existing drop-off area right here. We'd like to take that closer to the existing church, and then the parking that we displace from that, we would add along this north edge of that existing drive aisle. So not a whole lot of change to the parking lot itself. The existing church is kind of light in color as we come around with my cursor here. The new additions, the little office addition right here, and then the 10 classrooms and common space are here at the northwest corner of the property, which is the corner of Southwest 135th and Brockton. And these two combined, as stated previously, is about 17,000 square feet, a little bit over. The next slide is just showing how the interior layout is currently planned for right now, with blue being a large commons area, and that's anticipated to be the tallest part of the new addition, which is about the same height as the existing chapel. And then the green is new educational space, and that's the new classrooms, 10 new classrooms. There is some additional square footage there for more plumbing fixtures to meet minimum plumbing fixture requirements per code. We're also proposing to move the existing kitchen, which is right here, to the new addition with better access to a vehicular drive. And then up here in green, that is the office addition. And both the office addition, everything that you're seeing in green here is real low. It's the same height as the lowest pitched roofs on the existing school. And it's this blue portion here that's a little bit higher that matches the chapel. We are also showing that these different colors are representative of different phases of the project. At this time, we're anticipating that this project would not happen all at once, that it would be phased over time. And we don't have the phases figured out yet, whether the blue area, which is the large commons building, if that's a phase one with a portion of this phase green, so you can get to the classrooms would be the first addition. The yellow portion here is a reconfigured entry for that new program, and that would be a phase three. So really the question is, what's phase one, what's phase two, and is there indeed going to be a phase one, phase two approach to the project? So that's the project. That's about as far into the design as we are. We did receive some questions during the 20-day notice that we had sent out prior to this meeting. And one question I did want to address real quick is, when do we plan to submit for our conditional use approval and other related land use applications? And the answer to that is, we are required to submit by April 1st. That will be the 1-year date from when we had our pre-app, which we're required to be submitted before we trigger having to do another pre-application. So the anticipation is that we will be submitting it here in the next 2 weeks.
Dustin, do you see there's a couple of questions in the chat? Can you see those?
Oh, I need to pull that screen back up. Let's see here. Maybe. It makes it hard. I've got an additional screen. I'm on two computers. And
Okay,
one has-
let me read them to you then.
Okay.
The grade school, high school, and the church will, let's see, that's just a comment. Here's the question. Will the students get out of school at a different time than Heighton, as the traffic at dismissal times is already horrible on Brockman and 135th?
The answer to that is yes. That's part of our existing CUP, is that we had to not line up with Heighton start time or end time.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Will the common area, will that also serve as an indoor athletic event option or opportunity? And I have a second question after that.
Yeah, it's not intended to be a gym. We are hoping that maybe we can do some limited activities like possibly pickleball in there or volleyball, but it will be, and certainly it'll be a kind of a recess area for the kids. But it's not intended to be a functional gym.
Could it be converted to one eventually?
Potentially, yeah. I think part of it is just potentially more money, and we didn't want to look at that right now, but it probably in the future could be.
And the reason I'm asking that is my now 19-year-old grandson went to Life Christian, and I was just absolutely blown away and very pleased at the number of religious schools that are throughout the Oregon area, and what a great program they have for everything from boys and girls, basketball to volleyball, stuff like that. And so if you're planning on having a high school, I would hope you would have those kinds of activities available for those kids too. And then the other question I had was, that's more of a comment. The other question I had is, I know the cul-de-sac across the street from you had some concerns about access and egress during your drop-off and pickup times. I was wondering if that had been addressed.
Let me go back to the kind of sports question. The Cordeo does not have any sports activities, and that's been true the whole 15 years of its existence, and isn't planning to do that. So we're not part of any league or anything like that. So that's not, we're a hybrid 3 days a week school. So sports is not something that we felt like we could undertake. So that's one of the reasons why that commons area is not purposely a gym. If we had sports, it obviously would be.
Mhm.
And then your second question, the cul-de-sac.
Yes.
That I don't know that we are able, or at least I don't know, and Dustin can respond to this. I'm assuming those individuals are in contact with the city. I don't know of any kind of direct remedy that we have as far as being on the opposite side of the property or the road. I don't know of anything that we can do to relieve that situation at this point. So certainly as the city reviews this, if there's something that they see that's creative, we would be open to it, but I don't know.
Well, my answer would be, if you're coming out of that cul-de-sac, is to turn west and then just do a loop around the back side of their cul-de-sac and to head east if they wanted to. But there was a resident in that cul-de-sac that was that participated in our last neighborhood association about your expansion of your facility. And,
That's Scott, who's submitting his questions in the chat. He can't figure out how to ask his questions verbally, phoning into the meeting.
Okay, so does anyone else have any more questions for either Dustin or Joel?
Yeah, I have a question. Have you done any traffic impact studies?
We have. Dustin, do you want to respond to that? Or?
Sure. Yeah, we did. We had Lancaster Engineering perform a traffic study. a lot of times with this level of development, what we're required to do up until we submit for land use review is just basically a traffic count. However, we were aware of the concerns of neighbors, and the city had recommended that we go ahead and do a full traffic study. And so we did. We had that completed towards the end of the summer. And by the way, that does remind me, another common question that we are getting is the data used during the time of COVID is probably not going to lend itself very well to an accurate traffic study. And I did want to address that tonight by saying that the city and Lancaster Engineering were they did coordinate on that point. They were given some very specific design requirements due to COVID, and they were required to use recent historical data and not current traffic counting, the cables that they put across the road and count the number of cars that go through. They were required to use historical data, and I believe also projected data, but it was to mitigate the fact that we would otherwise get false numbers if we were to just go out there and physically record the number of cars during COVID era traffic. However, back to the original question, yes, we did do a traffic report, and it was recommended by the traffic engineer that based on the projected number of new weekday peak AM and peak PM traffic generation counts, they're not recommending that we do any left turns onto Brockman, left turn lanes onto Brockman or onto Southwest 135th from Brockman. Or they don't believe that we're going to come close to hitting any warrants for a signal at that intersection.
Okay.
Do we have access to that report?
No, I'll have to defer to Miles for that. I'm not sure if that is a matter of public record or not.
So when they turn in their application, that will be part of their application packet, and that will be available through the city. And you can call the planning department at 503-526-2420. And they can give you more information about when it's supposed to come in. He said April 1st, when they'll have it published so that people can review it. How to review it? Do you need to come into the office, or will it be posted online? But anything that the city requests from the applicant will be part of the public record.
Was that 503-526-2420?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll have to leave a message, but they get back to you the same day.
Perfect. Sorry, go ahead.
Is there a public meeting?
There is, yes. This is a type 3 process, and there is a public hearing.
And then what do you anticipate as far as increased staff?
That's a good question. We're basically talking teachers. If you assume 7th through 12th grades coming back. So you've got, I'd say 5, I would say maybe at most 10 people.
And that includes office staff as well?
Yes.
And then how many students do you currently have at the Southwest Hills location?
During COVID, our in-person education, I think, is right at 100, which is low.
And what are you currently at the location on Brockman?
Well, that is the location at Brockman. Do you mean the
Southwest Hills? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the one we have the 100 students in person at the church.
How many are at Cordeo right now? And that's on Murray, is that correct? That's where that facility is?
Yeah, actually they've changed. They're off of oh, just left me. Off of Allen. Can't think of the street.
Okay, but that's the high school facility. How many?
7 through 12 there, and there's in person, I think 40 or 50.
And you're saying, so you have 40 to 50 students at that location, and that's supported by 10 staff members or teachers?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, but at the very beginning, the statement was currently there's 200 students and you would be increasing to 300 students. Is that correct?
The CUP is 200. It's not that we have 200, but the CUP that we're under right now is 200 at the church's location.
But and wanting to increase to 300.
Right. That's tied to the expansion. Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, being a parent who's had children in high school, will there be parking passes for the number of spots that you have in the parking lot? And then those that don't get parking passes, I'm assuming it's going to end up just like 130th over here, where all those kids that don't get the parking passes park on the street up and down 125th and all the way up through the neighborhood. So will that then cause tremendous parking all across 135th there by the park?
The church's parking can handle the school's parking easily. We have on any given Cordeo day, the parking lot is probably maybe 20% used. So we have tremendous level of parking because of services on Sunday. So the school does not tap out our parking lot.
So then it's just the parents driving and dropping off and parking and.
Yeah.
So Joel, I have sorry, someone else
Yeah,
wanted.
just briefly, Diana, I was just wondering, can you just help me understand when you were talking about the issue with Southridge, is the issue that the students are not abiding by like existing traffic law and existing parking law? Because the streets are public, right? So if they want to park there during the day, I guess I'm not sure I understand like where the concern is, unless it's just like this bothers me and I don't like it. But oh, you're muted.
Okay, it's a matter of each of the high schools give out X amount of parking passes.
Right.
My kids went to Southridge. It was juniors and seniors only, with seniors having priority. So then if you have a child that's like a sophomore that gets a driver's license, now they want to drive to school, they're not allowed a parking pass. So that's why we have so many of them that park behind Southridge on 130th. I don't have a problem with them parking within the spaces that they want them to. It's just when you start having a bunch of novice drivers, my children were in that group as well once upon a time. They don't pay attention.
I think we all were, right? I was.
Right. And as the high schoolers get out, they dart in between the cars, which, you know, you get used to, you pay attention, you drive around, you drive very slowly and carefully on that particular street. It's like coming home from work. If I'm driving up 135th, I know what times the parents have parked all the way up along 135th because they don't want to get caught in the traffic on Brockman. And then again, doors opening, kids starting. And so it just adds to the pressure of being a driver and being that much more vigilant when you have that many more vehicles parked along the side of those roads. That's all.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I understand. I just wanted to see if you were concerned about actual, like something that was against, you know, street parking rules.
No. I mean, I would prefer the band doesn't walk up and down the street when they do their marching band during the summer, but that's a whole nother issue.
Oh yeah. I don't know anything about that.
Okay. So Joel and Dustin, the type of school that you're running, I take it, do you have any understanding of those that are now going to be moving to this, if the planning goes ahead? Are they from separate families? So in the case of, are you going to actually be increasing the level of traffic coming in, or if there is a family of 5 and they have some in high school, some in grade school, they're not actually going to increase the volume of cars coming in and through this area. because they're bringing 2 kids here and taking 2 kids to the other school. Do you have any numbers on those at the moment?
I don't have numbers, but you're right. We have a lot of carryover between K through 6th and 7th through 12th. So we have families that have, kids in all those in both areas. So it won't like double the traffic. It may go up, 50% maybe from what we have right now is just a shot. But yeah, there is definitely families that have kids in both schools.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, I see a question from John Greenblatt. He asks, when will the application be submitted to the city? They've already said by April 1st they need to submit. And when will the planning commission hearing take place? That timeline changes depending on how long it takes to say that the plans are correct and they've submitted everything they need to do within their application. If you received a letter from the developer for tonight's meeting, you'll receive a letter about the planning commission meeting as well. Otherwise, you can follow up with the planning department and find out. It's a pretty long process. It's a couple of months in between applications submitted and when the planning commission actually happens. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes. And then there's another question. This would be for Joel or Dustin. How will those high school students access the facilities? I'm not sure what that means, but.
Some will, be driving, like with any high school, some get dropped off and some drive. So it's hard to know exactly what the percentage would be. But, one thing I will say on the upper grades, because there's so much choice in education right now, whether it's private or public or PCC and other things, those are not our strong grades. So typically 11th and 12th, we might have 5 or 10 students in those grades. So we're not, if you want to look, we're stacked more in the elementary K through 6, having 14, 15 students per grade, maybe double that if we have 2 classes per grade. But our high school is not, it's not like we're bringing a 100-person high school over. We just don't have it.
Okay, couple more quick questions. Diana, who all gets a letter? It's any property owner within 300 feet of the project. And then Debbie, the public meeting, it hasn't been scheduled yet. It depends on a variety of factors. And then Scott has a question for Joel or Dustin. I guess a statement. The physical size of the building is overwhelmingly large.
We have some functionality that we're trying to accomplish. We have almost 5 acres there, and we're just trying to be reasonable as far as the stewardship of that and the opportunities that does for education and that type of thing.
And the last question, I didn't think you touched on it yet, Miles. This something with touching on the property values of the immediate neighbors because of the building. Has there been any studies at all about the impact of modifications to buildings on the actual property prices? Miles, has anyone done any studies on that?
No, and that's not part of the development code. It's not one of the considerations for approval or denial of a project.
Right.
So the city has to go by the rules that they've set forth and look at what's in the development code. And if the project meets those, staff will recommend approval and it'll go to the planning commission. If planning commission believes that it meets those approval criteria, then it will go forward unless there's an appeal.
Okay.
I can somewhat answer that. Having lived in the section of the mountain area, which would include the Heighton grade school where my daughters went, when they had a major expansion themselves, and the only thing that really impacted the property values was the 2008 to 10 recession. And so, and then we used to live up from 1975 to 86 over in Highland Hills. And there were some expansions of schools over there and other facilities like churches on the, I think it was the Allen Wilson corner of the Christian church there. And there's also the brand new expansion for Bridge Meadows on the corner of Allen and Menlo. And that had, if anything, potentially a positive impact. So typically, my wife's in real estate and I follow that a little bit. I'm not an expert on it, but that could be assessed by other people that are in that industry. But the chances of it having that much of an impact are pretty negligible. You're seeing property values rise regardless because everybody wants to get out of Portland right now.
Okay. Any more questions before we wrap this session up? And again, I thank you, Dustin and Joel, for your answering all the questions. Thank everyone for their participation. Before we close,
do you have any renderings of the outside of the building? Because it sounds like it's going to be very, very large, and it might not fit in with the neighborhood, the look of the neighborhood. That's my concern, that it's going to look very out of place, having a very giant structure right up against the street, across the street from this beautiful park. And, I'd like to see what it looks like.
Yeah, and at this point in the design, there aren't renderings. However, when we have our presentation, our public hearing, we will at that hearing, be showing off the project and how it meets the language of the surrounding architecture and the fabric of the neighborhood, if you will. Part of the project too, and part of the development code is actually, what are you doing to increase the design aesthetic of what is currently out there? And so we are proposing more lasting materials, expanses of glass, and when we get it designed to that level for the public hearing, you'll see it, and I'm confident that you'll be pleased. I know design is a subjective thing, and we can't please everybody, but certainly the intent is going to be that this, even though it's a large addition with respect to that existing school and church mass, it should fit in quite nicely.
okay, again, thank you very much. Anyone else?
You
Any
did
last
say
comments?
that it was a single story addition, and I would assume that everybody's wanting to make it match the existing building, which was, what year was the existing building built? Just for
The existing sanctuary, about half of what you see of the old building was built back in 81, I believe. Yeah, that section was built in 81.
But you did say that the northwest corner was going to be as tall as the current chapel.
Correct.
And it's a big rectangle.
But in clarification of that, did you say it's only the multi-purpose area, not the whole building?
Yeah, so this area right here that I'm circling with my cursor is the commons area. We expect that commons area will have a pitched roof like the existing structure. So the highest point on that would be running right down the center, which is about right where my cursor is. And that would be from grade level to the top of that ridge is about the height of that existing chapel. One thing I will mention is that you're probably familiar somewhat with the topography out there. We plan on continuing this addition at the same level as this portion of the existing church, which is about 2 feet higher than this portion. But when we build out, we start to cut into the grades by about 4 feet. So if I was to throw out an example, let's say this building was going to be 28 feet tall. from grade level perspective, it'll look like 24 or 23 feet because we're starting so far underneath where that existing grade is.
Which the limitation in Beaverton is 35 feet
For this
For this-
zone, that's right.
for this zone.
Yep.
Welcome to land use in Beaverton, y'all.
So I'll just mention to everyone, I've captured all the comments that were in the chat and the questions in the Q&A, and the sign-in, the list of people who attended the meeting. And I'll be sending those to Dustin and Joel. And Dustin will include that with the application package as he's required to. So all your comments are being recorded and will be included, and staff will read over those notes, and Planning Commission will read over those notes as well.
Thank you very much, Miles, for that comment. And again, thank you everyone for your participation. Thank you, Dustin and Joel, for your comments and answering the questions as we have them. Okay, then. If I'd like to move on to the next piece then, and that is now, I'm going to ask Richard. He was volunteered, coerced, or yeah, he was the last man standing to give us an update on what the walk to school involvement that we talked about last week, last meeting.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, as I talked about before, the city has a climate action plan, and item number 50 in the climate action plan is about safe routes to school. So I contacted the safe routes to school person. Actually, she came to a NAC meeting, I think, and I followed up with her. Leah is going to lead a practice walk audit tomorrow at 3 p.m. You're all welcome to come. It will be, we will meet at the corner of Sexton Mountain Drive and Maverick Terrace. They're right next to Highland Park. And that is the beginning of one of many safe routes to school that go to Heighton. So we'll walk down Maverick Terrace to Stirrup and then go down Davies to Heighton. And Leah will talk to us about what it is a person does when they do a walk audit. So that's the practice. And what I'm hoping is that we'll be able to record these walk audits as volunteer hours, which leads to the NAC getting money from the city. That the walk audit documentation, once it's delivered to Leah, she will use that to get funding for making changes, improvements to the safe routes to school for students and parents walking, biking, and other ways that they use those routes. So once we've practiced, and then I'll start recruiting people to do walk audits for the various routes to Heighton. Once we've done that, then we'll have enough experience and be able to have a system going, I hope, and we can scale this up. We can then partner with Greenway NAC, I mean, and do Greenway School, Greenway Elementary, Conestoga Middle School, and Southridge High School. They all have safe routes to school for those schools. So hopefully we're going to be able to start small and scale this up. But there's money involved. It's a climate action. So I'd like to encourage everyone to think about that in the future. Even if you can't make it on Friday, we can have more practice sessions in the future, or you can partner along with somebody who's gone and you can do a walk audit. It doesn't have to be somebody doing it alone. It can be, you can mask up and go out there together. So if you have any, if you have the opportunity tomorrow at 3 o'clock, please join us. If not, contact me. My email's Richard Turncock@comcast.net. And I'll be happy to work with you to help out the neighborhood, the city's climate action plan, and the safe routes to school for the Beaverton School District. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Richard, how long do you think that walk is going to last? Is there a plan for it?
I don't know, however long it takes to walk from Sexton Mountain Drive
A
down
lot
to
shorter
Heighton.
downhill than uphill, right?
Yeah, it's downhill.
It's going to take longer coming back than it is going. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so it might only take
It's
us
just
maybe
safe
half.
routes to school. It doesn't say anything about safe routes from
Back.
school.
Right. So
No,
it's
I was just trying to estimate the time
half
commitment.
hour,
For
probably a half
hour.
hour plus your return trip wherever you're going.
But
It could be
sort
your
of
daily walk.
tying back into our previous discussion, it's like the more kids that are walking to school, the fewer cars are driving to school to drop them off and creating traffic around Heighton and West Hills Baptist Church School and all of that. So
There's a lot of what you call unintended consequences that we can't really define, or that are odd about how things like this improve the community and the neighborhood. You see people walking, and the neighborhood has a different feel for it when you see lots of adults and kids out there walking or riding their bikes. And I don't know, I think it just changed the neighborhood if we had that happen.
So Inka, you have a hand raised.
I didn't have my hand raised. Wait, hold on.
Oh.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, awesome. Hi, I'm Inka. Are you asking if I had a question about the what you guys were just talking about?
I'm sorry.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, you have your hand raised. I thought you had a question. There's a little hand on your window. Oh, sorry, it was mine.
I don't think I have a
okay.
hand raised, honestly.
It's all right. I'm going to go back to sleep now and get on with something else. Yeah. Okay. I apologize.
No
I didn't
problem.
realize my cursor turns into a hand when it goes across a picture. So
You're all good.
moving quickly on, embarrassed as I am.
No worries, Mike.
Yeah. Any other questions, please? Okay.
And Mike,
Yes.
my old grade school is now McMiniman's Kennedy Grade School over in northeast 33rd. And we used to walk literally about a mile 0.2 to and from each way. And we used to walk a lot. And probably were more healthy back then. But nowadays, one of my big concerns, having two daughters, and I'm not real crazy about them walking by themselves. Now that means I would have to get up and walk with them just for safety purposes. And I think these safe routes to schools are a great idea, and I agree with everything Richard said. But my biggest concern right now is child abduction and safety for those kids who are walking by themselves. Not all of them abide by rules. I can remember doing silly things, stupid things when I was young, and so we're going to need to be very careful how you push something like this, and making sure not only say safe routes to school, it has to do with, and we've had a number of next door comments about people walking in late at night in people's backyards and stealing packages off there. So it isn't quite as safe as it used to be back in the when I was in grade school and high school age, because we used to walk to school all the time. So I think that's something that I think the Safe Walks to School issue movement needs to address, is being safe other than just routes.
Yes, Diana.
So being somebody who's actually worked at 4 different school campuses in Beaverton over the last 20 years, I can tell you it has increased tremendously the parent pickup and drop off. They don't allow the kids to walk to school. And from what I understand, the safe routes to school is just that. They've made a route. They see if there's sidewalks. If there's no sidewalks, then they say this isn't deemed a safe way to go. They're not necessarily trying to push families to walk. They're just saying, if you live in this area, what is it, a mile and a half from around the school, then you don't get a bus unless you have to cross a specific street. Like when I lived in Tigard and my kids went to Conestoga, it was closer and faster for them to walk and cross over Shoals, which was scary and a whole nother thing. But they weren't allowed to, according to the school district, because it wasn't a safe route. So even though it took half an hour for the bus to come, pick them up, drive them all the way over there, and we just lived on 121st on the other side of Shoals. I don't think it's trying to increase the walking. It's just absolutely saying this is a safe route. There's sidewalks, there's stop signs, there's crosswalks, that kind of stuff. But again, I'll tell you, the last campus that I worked at, it was parent after parent after parent driving them in. And that's the thing that scares me, and a little bit why I was worried about the expansion at the private school, is the parents are in a hurry. They're dropping their kids off, they're going to work, and they're not necessarily paying attention to the other kids running across, especially right there on 135th. If they're parking the one way and the kids running across to get to the campus, that's where it's going to start to get a little scary.
Okay.
I think that my sense is that the Beaverton School District, and Diana, you would know, having been an employee, but they're aware of all those things. And that I see it as an opportunity for even groups like NACs, right? That for a school like Heighton, it's another avenue where a volunteer who's had a background check, I don't have any children of my own, but if there's a safe route to school from my house, and a parent would, if it comes down to a choice between a parent driving that kid to school or me walking with 3 or 4 neighborhood kids to Heighton on a designated safe route to school, I'm more than willing to volunteer to do that. And so I think that, that would be a suggestion that I would make to the school district, even to the building administration, and working through the PTO and all of that. And so this isn't everybody has to walk to school, but it's also one of those, as budgets get cut, transportation is a huge expense for school districts. And so, and it also, tying in with the city and, where are there sidewalks? Where are there not sidewalks? When you look at new development and, builders are not required to put sidewalks down a whole street. They're only required to put a sidewalk in where they build new development. And so it's all connected. So I'll see you tomorrow, Richard. I'm still here. Rain or shine, I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow too. I was gonna add to what Debbie was just saying. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we first moved to the neighborhood, and our kids were littler and at Heighton, we had 3 other families that lived close by that we did a walking school bus with. And so we had a shared Google Calendar, and there was one parent that from all 4 families that would walk all the kids down, and it was really great. Like that way it wasn't always, you didn't have to go every day. It was like once or twice a week that I would walk, and the camaraderie with the kids was really fun. And anyway, just wanted to throw that out there, but that was really cool. And the kids enjoyed it a lot.
And I think that is another thing that I think as a community, if we're trying to build a better neighborhood that we live in, as you see kids walking up and down all the time, and you know that they're going to school, there's a purpose for it. It also helps those that are living around there to say, oh yeah, there's that kid going back to school. So they're there to be a support and a help to them as well. And also, if I don't know if we have a dog and we walk a dog, and it's amazing how many times we'll stop and chat to someone as we're walking because they're out walking too. And I think that's another way of building a better community, which also then tries to address some of what Frosty was saying. People feel comfortable that if someone is trying to abduct them, and hey, I've talked to that lady on that corner street 20 times since I'm walking, and I can run there to be safe. So you have that, you're building up a better community or a better neighborhood just by doing it in the first place. Because I think, as Richard was saying, you end up building a different environment because everyone gets to know people and they feel more comfortable. When people are driving by in their cars, nobody knows them, and I think we lose that connectedness with other people. So I think it could be a great idea, great way of trying to go back to how we used to be. I used to cycle to school every day, but that's so many years ago. Anyway, any other questions, comments, and we'll finish that piece. Okay, thank you very much. So the next is increasing the NAC involvement. We were talking about doing different things. I know that there was a comment made about shredding. I'm sorry, I've been so snowed over the last, literally in some places, snowed over the last couple of weeks that I just haven't been able to keep up with it. But I know that we were looking at that, and I think Miles, you'd sent us some information, so we'll try and follow up with that. But I think Lisa, you had a comment of the Beaverton Food Project.
Yeah, so actually that's why Inka Gunter is here. Thank you so much for joining us, Inka, and sitting through the beginning. This is how these meetings tend to be. Lots to cover because it's only once a month. But yeah, I mean, I kind of summarized it in my email to you, Inka, but I'll just summarize for the rest of the group or for whoever wasn't with us last month when we talked about it briefly. But we're looking into donating some of our treasury, some of our funds to the project that that Inka and I think another small group of people have going in Beaverton called the Beaverton Food Project. And they have some refrigerators and then some pantries that are just out like in kind of in front of people's homes and different locations. And it's my understanding, at least, is that it's kind of a mutual aid idea. So it's, you know, take what you need and give what you can, and just very community, you know, grassroots based. So we're looking into donating some funds. And then also, I don't think that there is a pantry or a fridge in our neighborhood. And I don't know, Inka, if you had a chance to look at the website to see where our neighborhood is, but I'm pretty sure there isn't one in our neighborhood. So we're talking about maybe at least just kind of opening up the conversation for putting one in our neighborhood. So yeah, I don't know if you have any comments or any thoughts, Inka.
Yeah, I didn't look at the actual Bounce Beaverton on your website. Is there like any kind of general space that you could say would be South Beaverton?
Who knows it off the top of their head? It's south of
it's
Brock.
east of Murray and south of Sexton Mountain, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, south of the Highland Forest, out to Davies, Sorrento, and then on the south end, it's Shoals Ferry.
Shoals, yeah.
Okay,
So it's
cool.
like very South Beaverton, like on the border with Tigard.
Totally. Okay, yeah, I think we might have one pantry in that area, and honestly, it doesn't get that much traffic because the placement's not ideal. So yeah, I think that would be super awesome to definitely get a location or two in the South Beaverton area. Yeah, what were you guys thinking along those lines? Like, did you have people that you knew that were interested in it, or did you want to like do a call out, or what were you guys thinking for that?
I think at the moment we're just investigating it just to see what the possibilities. We're trying to look at what we can do for our neighborhood and how we can improve, you know, the neighborhood experience.
Of course.
Yeah, and I mean, I can say I live in Sterling Point, so I mean, I'm a little biased, right? But I think that this community could definitely, like, something located convenient to Sterling Point, or honestly even inside of Sterling Point.
Yeah,
could be really, really awesome. You know, this is we've talked before, actually. Frosty knows that this is a huge community. This is huge. There's like 600 apartments here in
There's
Sterling.
about 3,000 or 4,000 people just in Sterling
Yeah,
Point.
it's gigantic. So, you know, there's and you know, obviously we're all renters, you know, and you know, so I just think that it might be a really good location for something like this.
So Lisa, do you know whether or not Sterling Point will be open to make space available for something? I know they have their rec room and what have you, but is that something that having something that would be already available so that you could put a fridge or somewhere to store it?
Yeah,
Well,
I
it's
can.
a place that would be open to more than just Sterling Point residents.
Right.
No,
That's true.
I understand that, but they may have something on the corner of a property, so not necessarily inside, but it is a big complex. So whether they had something, anyway, again, it was just a thought or a suggestion.
Yeah, I will reach out to them before our next meeting, you know, and try to see what their thoughts are. I can say FYI that Desiree is no longer with the company, the previous manager that we worked with for a while, and she was the one who set up that time we needed a space, and she kind of got that space for us here. So she left, which is a bummer for me because I had worked pretty hard to develop a good rapport with her. But yeah, so I need to reach out. I'm pretty sure, like, I'm not going to be surprised if they say that they won't do anything indoors because of liability and stuff like that. So we'll have to see.
Okay.
So how does that work? How does it work? I mean, you're just not gonna set out a refrigerator out in the corner of the street, right?
Yeah, so the way that we've done it is we've relied on families in Beaverton who want to be involved, and they basically decide that they want to host either a fridge or a pantry, and we provide that and then help as much as we can to maintain and make sure that everything is, like, basically people are adhering to the community guidelines that we've set out. And these pantries and fridges essentially serve as like a vessel of food exchange. So yeah, that way that it's kind of a counter movement to food banks where you have to be there at a certain time and you have to be there in person around a bunch of people, which some people don't feel comfortable doing, especially like in these times. It's just available 24/7, and people just basically can take whatever they want, and people can also just give whatever they can.
And it's either or both, right? Like it's a fridge or a pantry with no fridge, or both a fridge and a pantry.
I mean, sky is really the limit. I think that we haven't had, actually, a lot of times with our fridges, we like to supplement it with some sort of pantry thing, because when you get food donations, people typically think dry food when they're thinking about what they want to donate, even though that's not exactly what we're going for. It's the easiest thing to donate. And so people will put like dry food in the fridge, which is a moisture like environment. And so it's usually not the best situation. So we do want to ideally have a supplementary pantry style.
But we don't necessarily have to have a fridge.
No.
So if that's
always an option. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a volunteer for the Beaverton Police and went through their police academy. And as you're probably familiar with the shredding event, which hasn't happened for this last year, which is unfortunate, but we collected everybody that came by, not everybody, but the vast majority of people that came by would donate a bag of food. We also had to check it to make sure the food wasn't outdated. Usually there's expiration dates on canned goods or boxed goods and stuff that you have to check. But most of these, the church that sponsored this was out off of Cornell, just north of Highway 26. And there was literally hundreds and hundreds of cars that would drive by once a quarter to do that. And having it in a home seems to be very obtrusive for whoever owns that house. But if there's church or other types of semi-public facilities that could do this, and a lot of the churches already have food pantries, is there a way to piggyback onto those?
Yeah, I mean, I've reached out to a couple churches in the area, the Baha'i Center, which is a church but temple. They're hosting one. They're out on Murray, and that pantry gets a lot of traffic because it's so accessible to the public. But I reached out to one of the churches close to the Beaverton City Library because that location is so ideal, and they weren't interested in it because they had their food bank system, and so they just didn't want to, which is understandable. But I mean,
for their own parishioners,
yeah, I mean, that's their prerogative, it's their property, obviously. But was like any sort of like business or church, or I mean, anyone who owns property who wants to do it, that would be so awesome. Yeah, I mean, really, we're just doing this, trying to make the community take care of each other, and you know, really we're all just looking for possible solutions to get everyone fed. So I think whatever you could think of is always an option.
I honestly don't know of a church that doesn't have a food pantry. And I'm wondering if
Anybody know if Southwest Hills Baptist Church has a food pantry?
Interesting.
I was thinking of approaching them. I've been there a couple of times, so I'll pop in there, because I was also thinking there's a possibility that for the shredding event, they have a big car park as well, which would be a good place to be able to do that, so it wouldn't be in the street. So I'll reach out to them and see if they're interested in that. So that also may be a possibility.
Okay, yeah, so I'll take the action to talk to Sterling Point, just to see what their thoughts are about, you know, putting something on somewhere in the property, or maybe not inside or anything, but maybe next to a building or something like that. Actually, we have a bunch of laundry buildings, yeah, that are literally sit unused. Oh my gosh, I just thought of that. Okay, so yeah, I'll look into that. Sorry, my son is trying to press the buttons because he thinks this is a touch screen, but it's not. Yeah, the only other thing that I wanted to make sure we cover is how would it work, and I don't know if Miles is still on, but like how would it work for us to do a donation, or maybe Heidi, you know, would we just like cut a check? I don't know. How would it work for us to do the actual donation? We
would have to raise up a request for a grant, and that would go through the BCCI. And then it's whatever we will put into it from the time and our time, or whether it's just a grant where we just give them something to help them get started. Is that correct, Miles?
Yeah, you have two options. You can just write a check from take a vote of the board members, and then write a check from your treasury for whatever amount the board sees fit. Or you could apply for a matching grant, but you need to demonstrate volunteer hours that are equal to the amount you want to donate, which may or may not be easy. I'm not sure. So two options. I think you have a pretty robust treasury, so a straight donation is one option. Okay. It's your treasury, and I have no say on how you choose to disperse it.
And the BCCI member who sits on the committee to approve those, that's me, and probably 3 or 4 others. I can tell you that one of the criteria that we would look at is ensuring that it is accessible to the whole community. That if it wasn't, for example, in a specific, let's say just for example, a church, that wasn't just for that parishioner group, it would have to be accessible for the neighborhood, and that it was managed well, so that you didn't have expired foods and things like that. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that if it was done properly, we would approve it.
Okay. So Richard, sorry, this is my English humor coming out here because we're almost to the end, and I just thought I'd enter this. So Richard, I think if we combine the safe routes to school, and we can actually put a pantry or a fridge close by, we could actually walk and then pick up some food, eat it, and then that would give us hours to put more food back into it. Do you think that would work?
Now, there is the fire station down on Brockman and Davies.
That's called synergy, Mike, in American English, it's
Yeah.
called synergy.
All
That's
right,
right.
okay, thank you.
Of course, Mike, if you have to explain the joke, I don't know.
Come on. Father jokes, you know, as you get older, you always
Dad-
end up
dad
having some
jokes,
father jokes.
dad jokes, I know 'em well,
The
yeah.
only trouble is my sons, who are now, I don't know, 28, they've started telling dad jokes too. So it's like, oh dear, they're getting old. Sorry. We must continue to progress. I just wanted to bring a little bit of lighthearted something.
Yeah, I just think I'm still a little bit unsure as far as Miles, does it matter who the check is, like as far as how the check is, who it's made out to, or does it have to be made out to like a 501c3 or anything like that? Because I think, you know, the purpose of the Beaverton Food Project is it's not a charity, right? It's mutual aid. And Inca, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you guys have like a charity. Right.
Yeah, we
so does
don't,
it matter,
yeah.
Miles?
So for straight donation from the NAC, it doesn't matter. To do a matching grant though, it's a reimbursement and you'll have to have a receipt that shows that you paid the money. And usually it would also require a W-9 form, especially if it's to just an individual, because it would be counted. Basically, it's so that you can't write a check to Mike and just give him all the NAC money and say it's just a donation. He'd have to claim it on his taxes. But
And I've got my
if
own
you
check
wanna
anyway,
donate-
so yeah.
if you want to donate money just strictly out of your bank account after a board vote, that you can donate to whoever you feel is appropriate and ask for whatever kind of documentation you feel is appropriate.
Okay, well, Mike, maybe this is something we can take up at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, I'd if we can vote on it at the next meeting, I think that'd be wonderful, because I don't want to delay more than we like need to. But because basically I would advocate for, you know, a straight donation out of our treasury, given that we haven't been able to spend the money for a year or a while, of a given amount that we can all agree upon. So maybe we can put that on, you know, we can email about that and maybe put that on the agenda for next month.
Yeah, and I think we would need a purpose and what we're doing. So how much, what it's going to be used for, where it's going to go, and who's going to be benefiting it, so that we at least know that before we make any of those commitments.
Hey, Michael?
Yes.
I don't know why I didn't remember this sooner, but a year ago, September, Mayor Doyle, when Dan Doyle was the mayor, and Ann and Vicki and I were invited to go down to the Kelly Clarkson show in Los Angeles. I don't know if everybody remembers this, but it was on, I think, KPTV, Channel 12. And there was a big donation that went to the Beaverton Food Bank that was being established at the Christian Church on the corner of Wilson and Allen. And Kelly Clarkson actually donated $5,000 herself on the show. And the lady who was very instrumental for many, many, many years in Beaverton for this food bank, and she and her husband actually started it. And it was a generic food bank for not just that church, but for the whole community. Was recognized on the Kelly Clarkson show, and we were actually on TV for a little bit. But the whole principle was that this is Kelly Clarkson, when she first started her daytime show, had picked Beaverton as one of the top cities in the country to demonstrate how community took care of itself, which you all are describing right now.
Right.
All the way from safe routes to schools to the food bank issue. But I think if you were to check, Lisa, with the church down on corner of Allen and Wilson, that food bank is still going, and it is not just for that church. I'm sorry I didn't remember that sooner, but it was quite an interesting opportunity to go down and meet her, and also the charity was really cool.
Beaverton Christian, I think that I go running past there in the morning, and they have a food pantry there. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's not just for that church too. So
right.
Maybe there's a way to have synergy, as Richard said, with that program somehow, if they wanted to look at another site.
Oh,
This is a much smaller scale though. I mean, I'm looking at your map and the list. So on Nextdoor last year, there used to be a couple of tables in the neighborhood that people just set up in front of their houses with, you know, the same idea of leave what you can, take what you need. And they're not around anymore in the neighborhood. There used to be one on the corner of Davies and it wasn't heightened.
It was one of those. I remember I ran
Anyway,
past there the other morning and I didn't see it. So yeah.
Looking at your list of locations, there's one at the traffic circle on Sorrento and Hart. That's one of your project locations, and it's not, you know, it's. I assume the people that live in that house are the ones that sort of look after it, but for a food pantry like at Beaverton Christian Church, or Frosty, you were talking about the shredding events that were at Sunset Presbyterian Church, they have actual food pantries and they're open certain days and certain hours, and they're open to anyone. But this is a smaller scale to that, where it would be, you know, on a corner in front of my house, and not, you know, there wouldn't, you know, if I had it in front of my house, I might be responsible for making sure that it's supplied and making sure that, you know, there was a post on Nextdoor at one point where somebody was walking through Greenway Park and there were a whole bunch of potatoes that were just strewn in the park. And the speculation was that they had come from one of these tables that somebody had set up, and somebody, whether it was youth or whoever, had taken them and just tossed them around the park. So there would be a need to sort of monitor, but it would be on a much smaller scale than a food pantry like at a church, at least to start out. And so there's one in the Greenway neighborhood. Like I said, there's one, that would be Highland at Sorrento and Hart. So if you're curious, go to the project website and look at their locations and go walk by one.
Yeah. So I think that's a great idea. And what I'd like to do, because we are out of time, I think this is a great discussion that I think we can have. Again, I think from the discussions we had last month about breaking out the neighborhood into smaller chunks, and maybe we can identify areas within those smaller chunks where we could have a part of a community could support that piece. It would make it more easy. So I think we definitely need to have some more discussion, and maybe I'll try and get a map out to everyone and see what we can do about splitting it out. I do want to thank everyone. I want to thank Miles especially for coming in and supporting us and keeping us moving. I just wanted to give Heidi the last parting shot, because I know that I always ask you how much we've got, and I know we've got more than we did last week or last month. So do you want to give us a quick financial update?
I will, so our bank balance hasn't changed because I haven't made it to the bank yet to deposit this check, but that's on the list for tomorrow. But I did want to ask Miles, just because I wasn't necessarily expecting a check for the NAC for $500. Is this something that all the NACs got?
I'm gonna lie and say it was just for you guys because you're so special.
Oh, great. Thank you.
We appreciate that.
No, we had some extra funding that weren't able to use on behalf of the NACs because of COVID. And so we decided to just boost everybody's accounts by 500. We split it up evenly. I didn't tell anyone. I probably should have emailed all the chairs and let them know this was happening because I keep getting questions about it. I will say NAC treasurers are very honest because they're like, what? Everybody's questioned it. No one's just been like, I'll just put this in the bank. No worries. So.
Well, Miles, I'd like to thank you on behalf of our NAC and being so special to you as we are. I thank you for giving us the $500 extra. You know, we can put it to good use. All right, again, thank you, everyone. I do appreciate the time and investment you've put into this. I look forward to seeing if I can be part of the Safe Walk to School. The next meeting that we have is on the 15th of April, which was tax day, but if you remember, everyone, they've just pushed tax day out by another month or so, so we should be fine. But again, thank you very much, and I look forward to meeting you then.
Good.